Okay, we're back with Carolyn, and we're going to continue through some of these slides. I wanted to split this up into a couple different, at least two videos, because we have so much to talk about. So
should
Carolyn,
we skip up? Yeah, let's skip.
Yeah.
So from this area, I think it's important that we kind of get to that slide. Was it 59 that we talked about we wanted to look at? The triangle slides, or do you want something else before that?
Can we just go through them and then we can just
sure,
pick and choose?
absolutely.
Because, one of the things I keep saying too is that our schools have stopped being academic institutions or social welfare institutions. They are no longer focused on academics. It's really about fitting something about learning some kind of academics around all the social welfare, social justice, issues.
Right. And to be honest, most, like, I'm not interested in that. Like, I didn't come to education interested in that. I want, to provide that beautiful classical feast we're talking about to as many people as possible, because then we see the outcomes and the fruits of that are the amazing strides our nation has made in every area, in arts, in sciences, in business and commerce, in all based on our amazing founding structures, documents, the rights that we have, right? And so that's what's exciting, is to have these people coming from all over the world, coming here, and our kids, like I say, attending this feast and then seeing what they could do. We do have problems in this world, and none of us who oppose critical race theory in our schools that I know of deny that we have problems that need to be solved in the world, but we believe they'll be solved through innovation and expertise and competence. And we can only provide innovation, expertise, and competence to our students if we're teaching them in rigorous ways and not focusing on those other things. And so that's
consensus. We have to be able to have free speech in order to exchange ideas, in order to work through this.
We have to disagree on things, right? And know how to do that. And that great conversation has a lot of disagreements in it.
Yeah.
So the next section here is just a historical.
Yeah, These
are all the people who they say, that the intersectionality, these are the people who we've made progress. This is a good section of this training, honestly. They're showing you all the progress that we have made. Civil Rights Act. I mean, this to me is exciting stuff. Like, we're making progress, and you can't deny it. So why would we tear apart the foundations, the systems that have brought us this incredible progress?
I think the point of these slides is to prove that even though we have made progress, we are a systemically bad country,
which is sad, right?
Because this is the collective guilt and shame that needs to be heaped upon all those who even needed this to happen, right? Yes. We're supposed to take all this on. And in some of the conversations I've had, people say, well, shouldn't we be ashamed that we had slavery? Yes, but we should also be proud that we eradicated it.
Right. Yes. And we need to understand how we did, because many nations have not. Right. And so how did we do it? So that we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater, right? It is the structures. Yes. It is those documents. It is those rights that did this. So I love this slide because I think it proves our point, not their point. Like, we are making progress. Yeah. So why do you want to question the system that has made that progress possible? Mm-hmm. And then this is the reflection part, where they try to direct your thinking away from what I just said. Oh, they're like, yes, right.
I love this.
Okay.
I hate this, but I love this because this is, if you speak up and say, you don't agree with this, you have fragility. You can't open your mind to new ideas. You can't accept the shame and guilt that you need to accept. You can't accept that you are systemically and in your DNA biased and prejudiced.
And you shouldn't be, at best, work to be good-ish.
You can only be good-ish.
Not good.
Ibram X. Kendi says, unless you are constantly fighting racism, you are not an anti-racist. So my whole focus in life, you're racist. So my whole focus in life has to be on race. I can't think about anything else. I can't think about sexism. Can't think about homophobia. Can't think about anything else political. I can't think about my own life and what I need to do to improve. I have to be focused on being an anti-racist. That's all that matters.
Which it brings back that feeling of mind control, right? It's is impossible. It's one of those logical fallacies that he has been so brilliant at bringing out, and people are being impacted by. So they gave us more time to reflect, and tried to guide us through here, talking about everything that you do. You need to look at through this new lens. This is what, how diverse is your feed on social media? How diverse are your friends and followers? How diverse are those that follow you? And you understand that if the answer to that question is very diverse, then their answer is you're trying
to be a savior. Yeah, you're in denial.
Yeah, you're in denial, or you're a white savior. Yeah. I mean, I have a daughter-in-law who's Black. I have several grandchildren who are Black. I can't say that ever,
right?
Because then I'm like, oh, you're a white savior, or oh, you're trying to. I have a friend who's Black. Is that the thing you're doing? Or and it's like, so you understand that they take you to these places logically that are fallacies based on basic fallacies, and they're trying to make you go into this
blame and shame.
Yeah, blame, it's very unhealthy. It's a very unhealthy thing to do. We would call it cultist mind control if it weren't coming from the left, where it's coming from.
Right. If this were reversed, if we were asking Blacks this, if we were saying, Black person, how diverse is your feed? How diverse are your friends and followers? How diverse is it?
I hate to say this, but I believe the left has had the majority of the Black community in cultish mind control for generations.
Oh yeah.
And that's the problem. And we have to help them, bring them to the feast, help them see it, educate them, have them read the books where they'll recognize it and they can break out. And that's what we want. That's why education is what breaks people free of this.
Carolyn, it's actually happening. The recent polls that I've seen, they've lost like 15% polling points among the Black community and like 25% among Hispanics.
No one likes to be controlled in their minds. No one likes it. And when they feel and they know what's happening, they leave.
There are some very, effective Black conservatives right now that are making.
It's true. It's really
opening
exciting.
minds. Yeah.
So this is the fun topic that we love to talk about, right? What is it in their minds? Unearned advantages. I love the unearned part. Who is it earned by? I believe I have advantages.
I do too.
They were not unearned. They were earned by my ancestors. I'm not kidding you. Like the hard workers in my line who came here, who sacrificed, who put their life on the line to come to America, who settled the West under great persecution, like whatever. But they weren't unearned. They're generational and they're passed down, and it's true.
Right.
And they're only restricted to the groups that didn't have ancestors that earned them for them. Right. And you see these wonderful immigrants coming in. They're coming from camps from Burma and from Africa, and they are coming here and they are working so hard. You look at their school outcomes, you look at their educational outcomes, you look at their business, the entrepreneurial outcomes of a lot of these immigrant families. They are coming and they are earning great advantages for their posterity. I don't care what color they are. It doesn't matter what color they are. They are
the history of this is the history of this country.
Yeah, it is.
Tell that to a third or fourth or fifth generation Irish person whose ancestors came here and everywhere they went, there were signs Irish need not apply.
Right.
Or whose ancestors came here as indentured servants or as slaves on sometimes Black plantation in the Caribbean. Irish people were bought as slaves,
right,
and placed on Caribbean plantations that were sometimes owned by Black people. Not everybody, but slavery in this country was not just white on Black. It was everybody on everybody who could take an advantage. And the Irish were some of the most persecuted group, ethnic group that came in. There were thousands, tens, millions that came.
Yeah. And because they refused to buy it, and many of them figured out very creative and hardworking ways to overcome it,
right,
their posterity has benefited. Right. And that is how it works. So this idea that it's unearned, that's silly. It wasn't unearned. You just may not know who earned it for you. Being born into a wealthy family provides privileges that others do not have. That is true. And it's been one of the greatest motivators for entrepreneurs and hardworking people over the whole history of our country, and we're not ready to let that go. Right. Do I think that kids should be able to walk into a store without suspicion? I do.
I think that's a straw man.
It is a straw man, but let me tell you let me tell you what we do at our schools, which is kind of funny. We have a very strong uniform. Like our boys starting in 4th grade wear a white shirt and tie, and then in 7th grade they can wear a blue shirt, or which grade they can switch to blue or white. But they wear ties. Girls wear cross ties and regular ties, and the kids, it's a very formal uniform. And people are always like, "Are you just trying to be elitist?" And I say, what's weird is my kids went to a private Catholic school, and I loved it. It was an amazing experience for them. And I noticed that when we were downtown, because it was in downtown Salt Lake City, when we were downtown after school, we were going to a store or doing errands after school, that they were responded to, my boys, they're all boys, in a very respectful way by every adult who saw them come into every store. They were spoken to differently. They were addressed. They weren't ignored. And when we opened APA, me and one of our founders, her name's Catherine Finley, who works in etiquette and does a lot of trainings in business etiquette and dress. And she just said, we will give our kids such an advantage to have them present themselves professionally every day at school. And so we have, and it has been so amazing. And so how do we help our kids walk into a store without suspicion? Guess what? My kids are all colors of the rainbow. But they dress right, and they do not walk into a store under suspicion. And maybe that's another really negative thing. People say, yeah, you shouldn't have to dress that way. You shouldn't have to. And it's like, well, this is a free nation, and people they're free to treat people the way they want to. So is it better to equip our kids with the tools they need to be treated with respect? Or is it better to keep saying, you can only be treated with respect when all the people in the United States decide to respect children? Right. That doesn't sound like a good plan to me.
Yeah. Years ago, when my kids used to go to ride their bikes to a convenience store. And one day I walked in with them, and the proprietor was he was an Asian man, had very thick accent. I don't know where he was from, but he said to me, you mother, and I said, yes. He said, you good boys, they no steal from me. So they were regarded with suspicion coming in until they proved themselves to be, it's not just Black people that suffer from this. Right. And, I was very proud that of course my boys would not steal, but this is what this man was having to deal with all the time with young kids coming into his store, and so everybody got treated with suspicion. And sometimes you just have to prove yourself, right? I mean, that's part of society as well.
It's a great opportunity to be able to prove yourself. In countries where there's no freedom, doesn't matter what you do, that's great. You don't get any benefit from it. Right. So we don't want to lose this. This is really important that we teach our kids this. This
that word mean?
I know. I don't think it's worth it. It's not the time.
Oh, this made me crazy. Let's draw a line. Let's separate everybody. Let's give us a visual about just how separate we are as a society. If you have any of these things, you are in a separate and unequal.
What's the logical thing they're missing here? They're logically missing is that, what about the people who have everything have many on both sides? And some days, depending on who you're with, you're considered privileged. When I'm with people who are more privileged than me, I don't feel so privileged, right? It's like,
who cares?
It's all about degrees. It's right. No, it's all about degrees. And so by drawing a line, this is logical fallacy in just viewing this. This is more mind control. They want you to look at it their way instead of saying, well, I'm a female. Why am I on the bottom? Like, what the heck?
I don't consider that to be oppression. And I love the word on the bottom. There's the word oppression. And when we keep saying,
we're on
this is a Marxist paradigm of oppressed and oppression. Well, there it is.
And the men are all on one side and I'm on the other. And it's like, wait,
just that's division.
That's not my view.
Yeah, and division.
Yeah, and it's just silly. So I wish it wasn't on there, but it is. And this is going out to all the teachers.
And then the colonization. Let's talk about the colonization. It's all about. Anyway.
And so we're not allowed to have a conversation. So in a classical school, you would have some kids assigned to present the benefits of colonization, because we have to look at both sides in order to understand history. It doesn't mean that I want them to believe it was best, but that's how you teach kids, is that you assign them to take positions that they don't necessarily feel, but they find evidence, right? And they start having these discussions that are very grounded in evidence. And so we can't deny that there were benefits and drawbacks, of course, to almost everything that we've ever done, right?
Candy recently said, why don't all the white people just go back to Europe? And immediately my mind was, well, why don't all the Black people just go back to Africa? Why don't we just turn the United States back to the indigenous people, and let's just erase all this history and all that's happened in the world. We would have to erase everything that's happened in the world.
Well, and
following that logical conclusion.
And we'll have to do another podcast sometime on a presentation that I did to my staff last month, where I took all the charts from an amazing book that shows all the progress that's happened over the last 200 years, and showing how phenomenal people's standard of living is now compared to whatever has been in the world's history, and how exciting that is. And we don't want to go back. That's the answer to your question, because we don't want to go back. People are living amazing lives now, unprecedented all over the world, in the history of humans.
Because they adopted constitutions. They adopted basically Blackstone. This is the word this is the middle one, Eurocentric economic and knowledge production systems. Guess what? Our whole public system is based on a Prussian model from 1735. It is a Euro. So are they saying now we want to do away with public schools?
Good point. That's where it came from. Yes, you're right. So then we're on to the influence of historical racism. And the history is typically told from the dominant culture's viewpoint. The colonizers does not always include racism within policies and actions of the government. So they're admitting here that you're not always going to see the racism in the policies and the actions, but it does not ever acknowledge the impact of these policies and laws today, like that happened historically, and now there's still these impacts left over. And again, to your last point, so what? So then what do you want to do?
Yeah, because we can't erase the past. And if you want to just keep on hammering about the past, then well, you're going to stay there. That's why would we do it? Everybody that's read a self-help book, the first thing you learn is stop living in the past and stop worrying about the future. Deal with today, the present, and make it better for everyone. That's what our whole mission at our school is, to be prepared to make a change in the world for the better. Mm-hmm. So they're just reciting the things that happen. We know these bad things happen. We know this mass incarceration is funny how they put that here. Yeah, that's also a lie. Yeah, they put that there. And then we talk about, they're talking about historically, now they're talking about, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it is true. We still have some systems that perpetuate racial injustice, but it's not a very simple problem to try to figure out. We've been working on it for a really long time. Well, that's my other beef, is that they take in all of these, in the sexual orientation, in the man-made climate, they take these very complex issues and they make them, a 10-second soundbite. They're very simple. They're not. Well, and if you look at everything that happened after the Civil War and trying to come out, and you have 100 years between the Civil War and then you have the Civil Rights Movement, 100 years of progress, 100 years of not enough progress, we would all agree. And then we have the 1960s and we see this another big burst of progress where we all agree that redlining and all of these things, enforced segregation, is not good. And we're so glad and excited to see it going away. It's proof that we're progressing, though. We're progressing, absolutely. And they're wanting to say, without any backup, that it's embedded into the system itself. Whereas I believe that since the 1964 Civil Rights Act, we have been pulling out, every law has been looked at, every state has been writing better laws to get rid of anything that would allow discrimination in housing, in employment. I employ 700 people, believe me, they have gone through and removed it from systemically. You cannot discriminate on the basis of anything in employment. Right. I mean, here's the other point, here's the other thing that really confuses me. They want to say that the white system is systemically racist. but then they want to use that same system to gain equity. It's illogical.
Yeah, that's a very illogical point.
You can't use what you are telling me is so systemically racist that it is inhibiting people of color and all these other intersectionalities and marginalized identities from succeeding. But we're going to use that system, and we're going to make you change the laws and restructure society so that that system now becomes equitable.
It's a great point.
It's illogical.
I love it. It is illogical. And I love the people who say the fact that we're allowing them to just speak their minds on CRT refutes their whole argument.
Right.
That a Black person is able to have this audience, a platform and speak. It speaks against this whole idea that systemic racism is so overwhelming.
And you can't, and of course we elected a Black president twice.
Yeah. And if you look
that has to mean something. That has to mean
something. And the last one here is another form of mind control. I just want to point out. This also means that regardless of your intention, so no matter what you think or say or do about it, most people participate in some way with the systems. And since you participate with the systems, then you're part of systemic racism. Yeah. So do you see how they wrap that up nicely into that package? You can't escape it. It's mind control. So here's our two triangle, I call them the triangle slides. Because they've drawn another line, right? And they say overt white supremacy, which is socially unacceptable, are things like lynching, hate crimes, blackface, the N-word, swastikas, neo-Nazis, burning crosses, racist jokes, racist slurs, the KKK. Now, I would agree with all of that, except I'm still confused about the N-word. The N-word is completely acceptable to be used by Blacks against Blacks. And I don't understand that. To me, I guess that wouldn't be white supremacy, but it is racism in my opinion, however it's used. But then on the bottom half, this is where they say this is covert white supremacy, which means it's socially acceptable. And that's another confusing mind control game, because some of these things on here aren't socially acceptable. I mean, even to most people, like they wouldn't think it's okay. For example, discriminatory lending, go down to the fourth line. Discriminatory lending nobody thinks that's socially acceptable. There's and anyway, but then we also have things that we totally agree with, like the quotations around "Make America Great Again," which is down on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To take a current contemporaneous political slogan for half of the country and call that white supremacy is stunningly and breathtakingly audacious in my mind. Like
it is. Oh,
this,
it is.
To bring this up in this group of teachers in Utah, which is a red state, this was not a brilliant thought. No. This was not a good idea, right? And so there's a lot of things in this slide that could
celebration of Columbus Day. Celebrating Columbus Day. What is the fetishing BIPOC? Isn't that what they do? What does fetishing BIPOC mean?
Well, they're saying that anybody who does that, meaning like focusing on it, so you can't win. This is the mind control, right? So like you're either racist, but if you say, but I love my Black grandchildren, I love their hair, it is so darling, I love being able, that's fetishing one of their characteristics, right?
Okay, but this is what I don't get.
And somehow that's white supremacy.
In a whole section of Kendi, a whole chapter, he debunks the idea of race, Kendi.
Okay.
He talks about there's no such thing as race, it's a white construct. But then you have, but we're all one big human family, there's only one human race.
We can't say that. That's white supremacy.
I know, but yeah. He himself says we have to. I don't understand his logic. It's so circular and so contradictory that I can't figure out what he wants me to do. And I think that's the point.
He wants you to not talk about it and wants me to not talk about it, because when you talk about it at all, it does not make sense, right? And so people see it, but they want to shame us into not talking about it, because they're saying, certainly if you're talking about it, then you're white supremacist. Look at
the only persons that can talk about it are BIPOC people. White people can't have. White people have no seat at the table.
That's right.
So really, if we're going to get down to it, CRT is about you have oppressed us for centuries. Excuse me. Now you are going to give up that any power you have. You're going to go sit at the back of the bus or not even get on the bus. And you're going to let us take over, and we're going to make sure that you have no power ever again. That's the end goal.
It's reverse racism, but we can't say that.
It's the end goal because now you're fragile. Now you're fragile.
Right.
Yeah.
Prioritizing.
Yeah.
And not that you can ask what the end goal is ever. I mean, we do. That's what I say. Okay. My favorite statement is, okay, let me accept what you're saying. Then what? To what end? To what end?
And what's the end goal?
How is this? Where are we going with this? Is this going to help our kids to become? So my job, my role in life, my vision of my life role is to open every door of opportunity to every student I possibly can, teaching them that hard work and perseverance and dedication and expertise will get them wherever they want to go, and they'll make the world a better place in the same effort they're making to make themselves better. So I ask myself every day, like, to what end? Why are you telling me to do this? To what end? How is that going to open more doors of opportunity for my kids? Is that going to open more doors? No, it makes them suicidal, because you're saying you can't be okay until or unless. Yeah. I'm sorry, but you're toxic, and I can't have you talking to my kids. You cannot come into our schools at all with this stuff. And I even have teachers who coming in, right? They don't know that you mentioned it to me in another conversation. You have these people coming out of college. They've never read a classical book in their life. They're coming in, they want to be an elementary teacher. They've been steeped in this stuff, the lens through which they're going to cripple my children. They're going to cripple my children through their lens. I have to keep them out of my schools. Yeah. We try so hard to find people who know a little bit about truth, beauty, and wisdom, who've read some classical books, who have thought in logical ways to try to teach elementary school. It's hard to find. They have big hearts, but they're tricked by this because they're told, you don't want to be a white supremacist. So here's all the list of things. Right. You better think.
Here's one thing they don't have on their list that I find interesting, that it's okay for Planned Parenthood to be centered in the Black communities and be murdering more Black babies than are ever born.
It's a genocide.
Every day.
Yeah.
That's they don't have that on there. That's okay. No, yeah. But we can't have any bootstrap theory. We can't say people can earn their way up. No. And we can't say all lives matter, because evidently only BIPOC lives really matter. That's right. And there's no other way to interpret that. There's no other way to see that. If you can say all lives don't matter, all lives don't matter. Well, whose life doesn't matter?
And you can't say that. You go to the next one, which is denial of your white privilege. The more you deny your white privilege, the more of a white supremacist that you are. Prioritizing white voices as experts. It's like, actually, in the world of business, science, hopefully medicine and law, and all these areas, expertise is expertise is expertise.
Doesn't matter what
it doesn't matter what color you are. I mean, we do have to prioritize whatever voice is the expert. And is it often a white voice because they have had the privilege of education? It is. Let's change that. Let's get it done. I mean, that's what we're working on, right? But it doesn't mean we change the definition of experts.
Self-appointed white ally. A self-appointed white ally.
Yeah. So that's me. So this is the thing. So because I'm trying to work in these diverse neighborhoods, right? We opened a school for immigrants. It's called the School for New Americans. Our second school was focused on refugees. We had 10,000 refugees a year coming into Salt Lake. We wanted to teach them at their level. We knew these were remarkable families who had been through a lot of things, who could benefit from a really strong educational experience. So we opened a school specifically called the School for New Americans in West Valley City, Utah. And we're told by the university, by others in the state systems, well, you better get some serious sensitivity training. You better, do all these things. And having worked in the international development world for a long time through my sister, who has a nonprofit that's 30 years old, working in Africa and other places in the world, we know that they need opportunity. They don't need indoctrination. They don't need me to come in and try to somehow celebrate their culture. Some of these people came from camps in Africa where their children had been recruited as child soldiers, who had participated in killing people and cutting off the arms of people who defied those tribes, right? These people came from cultures that had been abject failures. And they didn't need me to try to talk to them about their culture or to highlight their culture, or right. They came here because they want to learn about America, and I can do that. I can help them. I can teach them the founding documents. We read the Constitution at our schools every year, every student, every teacher. We invite the parents. We live stream it over the airwaves. Last year we had 10,000 people on Constitution Day reading the Constitution. Gosh. We did it 6 hours. We do it every hour on the hour. So next Constitution Day, you can get online at our school's links, and you can listen to the Constitution being read at each campus. So 6 times throughout the day.
That's fabulous.
That's what they need, right? That is what they're seeking. They don't need me to come and try to celebrate the Congolese culture or whatever. And that wasn't necessarily that one, right?
And you want to see what the end result of this one slide is? It's the Congolese culture. It's tribalism. It's dog eat dog.
Well, and I wouldn't. One thing I have learned too is Congo is a huge, huge place, and there are many cultures there, and there are many really beautiful ones there, and good ones, and smart ones.
It's a failure. It's a failure to unite.
Yes,
it's a failure to unite into one standard.
And so they're trying to make progress, but that's not my job. My job is when they come here and they're seeking a public education, is to teach them about the documents, about the structures that made it possible to have a country that's this amazing, that they want to come to and live in. Mm-hmm. So we have one more we'll get to. One more here, which is the other pyramid. I know. This pyramid of white, and I'm glad we're leaving these slides up a long time for anybody who's used this, because I think it's good for them to be able to kind of read through the entire thing at some point, right? And see it, the nonsense in it. But this one says, in a pyramid, every brick depends on the ones below it for support. If the bricks at the bottom are removed, the whole structure comes tumbling down. Oh, so this is their idea. They're like, so if you take out the bottom is just indifference, right? These are people who just, these are people who live their lives every day saying politics doesn't affect me. When they hear somebody who's been hurt, they say, well, there's 2 sides to every story. They don't challenge racist jokes. They remain apolitical. They avoid confrontation with racist family members. And they're saying, we should remove that. Well, I'm hoping that most of my friends aren't this way. Most of my friends, if they see someone who's being harmed, they stand up for them. They try to overcome it. Most of the kids at our
Carolyn,
school,
we're all racist. So all we're going to be doing is challenging each other, having contention. So I'm not sure how that works.
But like at school, when I see somebody being unkind and I see another student stepping in and fixing it, I'm really pleased with that. And I think we should do that. And I agree with them. We should challenge racist jokes, right? And then why the very next level? Minimization. We all belong to the human race. Color blindness. Martin Luther King Jr.'s major tenet is somehow the very up one level from the foundation of the pyramid of white supremacy is,
Kendi's the new MLK. I mean, Kendi debunked MLK, period. He proved that MLK didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, and we just feel that and
MLK failed.
We really are all part of one human race. I see it every day with my kids in school.
Well, the Christian religion doesn't need Kendi to tell them, those of us who live our religion and rely on the scriptures to inform us about how we behave one towards another. We don't need anything in the world, any worldly philosophy to tell us. It's just love God and love your neighbor as yourself. It's as simple as that. And we also don't need Kendi and all his ilk and everybody else that's bought into this to judge, because there's only one being in the universe that can judge.
And I'm very glad you brought that up, because isn't it so shocking that we've allowed him a position to place judgment on everyone? To place judgment on everyone. From his small perspective.
Yeah. And even, in Oregon, there are many liberal members of the church here. And this discussion that I've had with them, I find that's the only thing that will stop them in their tracks to say, excuse me, in our church and in our Christian religion, we are taught something so basic that we are not to judge one another. There's only one being that can judge, that my heart, my intentions, and is going to decide if I'm acceptable, and there's only one being, and it isn't you. Right? Sorry. It's very, very basic to the Christian religion. So if you're going to engage in that, you're going to have to answer to God yourself for that, because now you're usurping his power. And
it's a great point. Yep. And if we deny the rights, this was back, from a couple of centuries ago, if we deny the rights to one, we deny the rights, we potentially deny the rights to all, and of freedom from judgment, of freedom from everything. And so suddenly, why are we buying into this? It's okay to say white people are all evil or men are all evil. It's like, this is not okay. And it goes back to that basic foundational, we have to love everyone and extend this kind of dignity and respect to everyone. So I don't know, that's kind of the last slide that I thought we'd probably cover today.
Okay.
I don't know what you think. Do you have anything else?
I went through all of them. We spoke about so much today. I think everybody's got a lot to think about in what we've covered. And I would love to have you on again and have you give us your presentation on that book. That would be wonderful. Any more that you can, light that you can shed on these issues. My objective is simply help people to be aware of the flood that is the tsunami that is happening in our public schools. And, Utah has a lot of folks such as yourself. There are other, obviously, red states, Florida and different things. The problem is that we have so many federal mandates coming down through the Department of Education for things like this, that it's just really almost impossible.
Well, let me tell you, I do want to leave on a positive note, if that's okay. Yes. I want to share, if people go to our website, americanprep.org, and they go to the About, there's a section called, I just missed it. It was right here. It's called,
there we go.
Our Philosophy. And if you click on Our Philosophy on Classical Ed, Unity, and Empowerment, which we wrote last spring, about a year ago, I think it gives a really nice kind of overview about how American public school actually can fight all of this through a classical liberal arts approach, which we are. We believe our students flourish as they become academically proficient, develop strong moral character, and develop a desire to impact their community in positive ways. So at school on a daily basis, we enthusiastically engage in the learning and practice of the skills required to accomplish the ends. And then we talk about equality and unity and how important that is in a hugely diverse school like ours. We reference our nation's Declaration of Independence and that we believe all students and staff have been endowed with certain unalienable rights that we respect at school. We are all engaged in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and respect that pursuit for each individual. Included in the important rights of each student is that of being viewed as an individual of great worth to community. Every person in our school community is equally viewed as a person of unmeasurable value and potential. That's where it gets back to, right? And we don't care what their color of their skin is, what gender they are, none of that. Every human in our school is viewed that way. And then we try to make sure they can all fully participate, that they have opportunities, and that they're viewed, treated, and respected as a full and equal member of the community. And then we had some people ask about our view, and these are some of our parents' responses that are in italics there. And I think that's helpful. So I don't know, this was just my attempt to be positive, to show that if we go back to the ideals of our nation, our founding ideals, liberty, equality, respect for the rule of law, patriotism, justice, these things that are so integral to who we actually are. And we refuse to talk about all this other stuff we talked about today. I mean, I was happy to talk about it with you, but with my staff, I'm always directing them right back to the principles that bind us together. E pluribus unum. I started ending everything I write with e pluribus unum. Unum. Out of many one, right? E pluribus unum, like out of many one. That is who we are. That is the beautiful, beautiful message of America. And we have to be evangelists for that in our schools, and not just fight against something, but if parents would switch into their minds now, and their first sentence can be about critical race theory and social emotional learning, And I think they can say what they want about that in the first sentence or paragraph, but they need to launch then into, how are you implementing the beautiful ideals of our nation in my child's school? Where are they learning? Are they reading the Declaration of Independence? Have they memorized the preamble to the Constitution? Why not?
We did in school. I can still recite it.
Yeah, and that's what it takes.
I think that there are probably pockets, and I obviously commend you. I'm so excited to have this relationship with you and help people, find ways to do this in there. I think where I live, you don't have the opportunity. That would not happen. I don't believe that there would be enough pushback in my area, even among Christian people, to facilitate change in the public schools here. That's been my.
It could be. Yeah.
There are probably pockets, but
we don't have that influence in public schools here.
I know, but I'm interested to hear how you overcome some of the mandates that, the alternative lifestyle stuff. And I know there's mandates that come down, and how do you get around those?
They're not, well, you have to know how to read the law and the rules. You have to know how to read them. And,
Okay.
and I believe once you read the laws and the rules, you'll see that there are gaps where you can put in what our social emotional learning is actually all based in civil rights. So
Nice.
do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We don't do what they call social emotional learning. We do character education. And
Nice.
we have a very wonderful program, very, very broad and awesome. And we can call it our social emotional learning program. But we get to decide on our content. And I think that's what I'm saying is if parents will say, no, this is what I want my kids to learn, then they can learn it. It's just,
it's just overcoming the bias of the teachers and the administrators and the school boards in your local area. It's really, in some areas, a really uphill battle. But anyway, I know you've given a lot of people, you will, and we will give people a lot of hope that they can facilitate this change in many areas of the country. It needs to happen.
And I'm happy to share our programs. A lot of our stuff's available online. Parents could use it, could get on and look at it. Our whole leadership program is about that.
I meant to mention that you have all this, everything you do in your school available that people could use, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, which is very exciting.
Yeah, we have a lot of things.
And maybe we should talk about that on another podcast.
I think
just go through that, because that would be great. So good luck with your grandbaby. I hope it all works out well. You're in my prayers. And
all right.
We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.